latest on Oladipo. Let's get through this, and I'm gonna preface this by saying we always know more than we can say. So we always know more than we can say, or we have a sense of more than we can say. And then when you end up reporting something that does advance a story, people then get pissed off because you're not advancing it more. But we're going to be responsible here, and we're going to go with what we can absolutely 100% confirm. And that's what I did today for my Twitter account. And here's what I could 100% confirm, and it's not been disputed by anybody that we've spoken to since. Victor Oladipo is going for another opinion. That does not mean that he and the Heat are at odds. This is not a Justice Winslow situation. This is not a Chris Bosh situation. This is simply the fact that they had an MRI. I do think the one thing I can tell you is that I think it's fair to say this, Greg, and I'm going to throw this out there. There was no new significant damage shown by the MRI. I think that is fair that we can say that.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
So that is how we will advance that here. There's no significant new damage. There is discomfort. When the Heat are saying that they're gathering more information, they're not lying in this case. There's a 25-year history of covering this team where, as we talk about, guys have surgery that you didn't know that they were hurt. It's just the reality of it. They're not going to dispute that either. It's the way that Pat Riley has always done business. It's very, very Belichickian. With that being said, I don't get that sense at all in this case. I think that both sides would like to find a way for him to play. But I think that in both cases, there are reasons to be cautious here. And, of course, this is a player who came here with a pre-existing injury condition, which is a big reason why he was available for virtually nothing. Apologies to KO. Okay, so that's what we can say right now. So it's going to be – and I can also say this, and, Greg, again, you can confirm this for me. We've discussed it a little off air. We're not going to know anything for a little while. Is that fair? Is that your understanding as well?
Everything I've been able to gather is that they're not going to rush it at all because they value Oladipo. Like, this is not just like they don't want to rush him as much as anything else. And I just think they're going to play this super safe.
Yeah, super safe. And remember, there's another consideration here. He's a free agent at the end of the season. Obviously, the people around him are going to want to make sure he's protected for that. And obviously, if the Heat view him as a player they may want to invest in, that they want to be very careful with that. And that's what this was always about to a certain degree, which was evaluating Victor Oladipo in all ways, as a player and as a physical person at this point and his health. And they're going to get an opportunity to do that. This is not obviously the way that anybody wanted it to happen. But I can say for sure, thank you, Christian. Appreciate that. But this is not a Dion Waiters 6 to 8 weeks. This is not a Justice Winslow, Chris Bosh with Adrian Bosh taking out T-shirts and putting it in the crowd because she wanted him to play and they didn't want him to play. This is not that. At this stage, I can tell you 100%. All right, let's get to it then. Let's talk about Oladipo here for a bit, and then we'll get to the Blazers game. If you want to hear the Oladipo stuff, you can rewind here a little bit. Does anybody have any thoughts here on how, other than Greg and I here, on how the Heat and Oladipo should proceed, I suppose? Does anybody have any thoughts on that they want to jump in with?
I mean, I think that's it's the best case scenario for us to take our time with him, right? If we view him as a potential long-term asset and we want to get the most out of him, whether we pay him this offseason or we decide to move him whenever, right? We still want to make sure that we know exactly what's going on there. We want to know the extent of his injury because injuries today aren't injuries, 10, 15 years ago. Players can come back a lot healthier. They just need a little bit more time. They need that neurological connection to build back with that muscle and make sure that they're not atrophying, right? So I feel like this is a really good situation for the Heat to be in. We talked about it a little bit one day in the post game. If he's not fully healthy just yet, we can get kind of a discount on him in the offseason, and then he's a good asset if he returns to health, or even a better asset if we want to move him for somebody else. So I think this is a good situation for the Heat. It's best to be safe and sorry than not rush him back and have him hurt something else in the future.
By the way, for those mentioning the hat, you can get this on our website as well, 5reasonsports.com. Some of those here, I think, still need these, so I have them in my apartment, so we can get those to you as well. Ricky, let's go to you on this, and then we'll kind of come back to Brady on this. I mean, it's a double-edged sword in this sense, okay? You want Oladipo to play because you want this team to go as far as you possibly can, and you just want him to be healthy for his own sake. He deserves the opportunity to compete at the highest level, okay? At the same time, there is a long-term play here where, as Jonathan mentioned, a potential asset to the Heat could come at much less cost than we anticipated this offseason. Again, if you still think he's capable of playing at a reasonably high level, how do you balance these things?
Well, I think one of the reasons why I was even for the Oladipo trade as opposed to the Kyle Lowry trade was because I was more in favor of a balanced approach to the here and now and the future. Oladipo can represent both of those things for this Heat team. I think you work him back very slowly. You don't push the leg because, as Heat fans are aware and as Bulls fans are aware, you don't want to tempt the basketball gods with regards to building up of leg injuries. In 2011, 2012, Derrick Rose had an assortment of leg injuries, which ultimately resulted in him blowing out his knee, and that pretty much, everything just precipitated from there. Yes, Oladipo is a potential asset in the summer, but I think right now you need to worry about how this season is going to play out. You want him to be playable at some point in the season, and Oladipo, thankfully, isn't the only acquisition that this team made at the trade deadline to make this team better than they were before. Unfortunately, they gave up KO, but considering Bjelica, Ariza, and those two, their arrival respectively, as well as potentially what you might get out of Dedmon, which we don't know what it is. Right. I think at this point, you work with what you have. You work Oladipo slowly back, and you just be as forthcoming as you reasonably can be with all parties involved. So that way, come the summertime, there won't be any bad blood going in free agency.
All right, good stuff. Let's pivot off of it. If anybody wants to listen to it, they can go back to the beginning of this. Obviously, we'll get into it a little bit more perhaps tonight on the podcast if Greg, Alex, and I all stay up.